I wanted to record some thoughts on how you actually start in any business online, because I've had so many people reach out who are curious about starting, typically a development agency, because that's the stuff I do. But I think this extrapolates to a lot of other kinds of businesses. And I learned this just through trial and error, really. But the biggest thing that I think most people miss about when starting is just that the value of actually just starting something and sticking to it is far greater than making the best choice. And I took a while to hit that one, because I basically tried to do a bunch of different things and none of them ever really worked. And that cost me a lot of time. I mean, I learned a lot of things, but fundamentally the way you start something is you just, like you start a business, you just get somebody to give you money to do something for them. And it does not matter what that thing is. If it's to get them a Mars bar, then that's a business. If it is to, sell them a marker, that's a business. Whatever it is, the vehicle you choose, there's different limitations, but to choose something is the less important part. It is more important to just get somebody to give you money. And how you get to that point is usually you have to have some kind of skill or problem thing that you can provide to somebody else that they, find value and in turn are willing to pay for in cash. Somehow you are saving them time or money, right? So you are saving them some kind of resource. So for example, I am willing to outsource my laundry because it saves me time and I want my time back, and that's a business that you can start. And if you just run that and you run the biggest, dry cleaning business in the world, you can make a decent amount of money. And the thing is, you don't have to stick to your first business. And so I started my first business when I was 13, selling sandwiches to people in my school. That was before big delivery drivers were around and stuff like that. And that was a good business. It was profitable. It made me money. That's kind of what piqued my interest and got me to start doing things. But I didn't realize it at the time, but if I stuck to that for a really long time, I could have made something genuinely pretty cool. But no, I switched because I thought, oh, it's not a perfect business, so I'm going to switch to something else. And I basically went ahead and lost my time and whatever. And so I started building other stuff, programming more. And when I was 15, I did my first hackathon, and then people started hiring me as a freelancer. And that was the next time that I started getting paid to do something. And that was the first time kind of strangers who I had met online paid me to do stuff. And that was new to me. The only difference between a business and a kind of online business is that one is just strangers that you find online pay you, and the other one is people who you typically know in person. But the way to start is you just have to solve some problem for somebody. And to identify what problems you can solve, it's more useful to look at the skill set that you possess rather than looking at what is the most effective business, which is a fallacy that I used to look at and think one business is better than another. When the reality is, it's just one business is better for you. Like the development business is good for me because I happen to have experience in development and interest in tech and things like that. And so if you have an interest in tech, then do that. And I specifically wanted to do a development agency because I wanted to increase my exposure to that world without having to take on the risk of product market fit and things like that. But there's no WikiHow article on how to do this the best way. It really just comes down to solve something for somebody else, and do not overthink the thing that you are solving, and just look at the distribution that you have more than just the skill as well, because most people get stuck on where to start their first client. And the thing is, your first client becomes a lot easier to find if you already have distribution in that place. And for me, that was tech startups and that kind of thing. And so I knew a lot of people in tech, and I was kind of just involved in that space already. And so when I started the development agency, it was a lot simpler to get started. I would argue that too many people focus on finding the best business when they don't focus on their skills. And secondary to skills, distribution is the most important. Actually, you might even put those on the same level. If you have a bunch of distribution to, the candy shops, but you don't know anything about candy, well, if you know a bunch of people in that space, maybe it would be useful for you to learn something and then sell it to those people, because distribution is the hardest thing to kind of create from zero. And if you do not have distribution to anybody, which I think everybody does, just think about it. Who do you have access to? Who can you immediately contact and ask, can I solve some kind of problem for you? Think about who you know. And if you do not know anybody, then start by working for free. Start by doing stuff for free, trying to solve problems for free. And if you do good work, people will hear about it. That's how I started by programming a bunch of stuff for free. And I was sometimes I was in it for sweat equity, but a lot of the times that sweat equity turned into nothing. I basically just worked my ass off for free. But that is how you gain experience to prove that you can provide value. But in school, the way I made my first business, right, when I was 13, when I was doing that sandwich delivery stuff, it was just my distribution network, right? I knew friends at school who wanted outside food, and I could bring them that food. And so that was my first, that's literally enough to get started. Look at who you know and then figure out what problems you can solve for them. I think that's probably one of the most underrated frameworks maybe for people to start with. It's a very overwhelming thing to just think, oh, how do I start a business? Don't think about how do I start a business. Think about who do I have access to immediately? And then what can I sell them? Well, how can I help them? How can I make these people's lives better or easier, whatever? That's the best. That's just my 2 cents on the issue.